I now am capable of saying I'm about to starting a project 400 units. I never would have thought, my goal originally was to have a couple 100,000 saved up, and that was my dream, right? As a kid. Never would I have thought that, in my 30s, I'm building 400 units. To make a quick $1 million, I could go do that in Asbury. I could go do that in Belleville. It's not the money. It's now, how do I take it to the next level?
Get ready for Real Lives of Real Estate, where the world of real estate meets the essence of your life. Buckle up as we unravel stories, homes, and the heartbeat behind it all. Let's dive into another episode. I hope you share and are encouraged. All right, so I am here with Pedro Gomes, the legend, Newark native. Saw you the first time I saw you. I didn't even know it was you. Funny enough, you walked by me at your building, Envy by Gomes, and then someone next to me said, "Oh, that's the developer." I said, "Oh, wow!" And you were running it too. You were like moving. So I was like, "Oh, this guy's fast paced," and you were so young. So I was like, "Man, this is so impressive." Anyways, with all that said, I'm very grateful to have you on. Thanks for making the time. Grateful that honestly, hopefully, we can share with people what exactly real estate has done for you and how it shaped you. But my favorite question to ask is, tell me about where did you grow up, or what did you grow up in?
Both my parents, immigrants from Portugal, came here as a young kid, and grew up in Newark in the Ironbound on Cassuth Street.
Okay.
Parents still live there. Proposed for them to leave a couple of times, but it's what they know. The bakery Teixeira's is down the street, the Portuguese restaurant down the next corner, and everyone speaks Portuguese, and their neighbors has become like their friends and family.
Yeah.
And grew up in Newark my whole life.
Did you live in an apartment growing up or a house?
So lived in an apartment on Garrison Street.
Okay.
And
Your parents rent or own?
rented.
Okay.
And funny enough, it's weird. No one's actually asked me that question or led it into that direction I'm about to go into, but I actually convinced my parents to buy a house. They just weren't business savvy, and I guess I just had it. I don't know, maybe I had to because of the fact that they weren't. I remember being like 13 years old and calling the credit card company pretending I was my dad, and the woman be like, "Are you over 21? And I'd be like, "Are you questioning my voice? Can I speak to a manager right now? You're insulting my voice. You're questioning my age. I gave you my date of birth. I gave you my social. I gave you all the credentials, and you're questioning my voice." And the girl would get all defensive or something. But I would have to do that because my parents didn't speak English.
Wow.
And sometimes they had late charges or things happening on. I handled all their finances.
At 13?
From 10 to 13, 14, I did all that stuff.
Wow.
Write the checks because they didn't know how to write in English.
Whoa.
Yeah, literally everything. And we lived in an apartment, and I convinced my parents to buy a house. And at 14, 15, we bought a house. And that's kind of how it happened. But the whole entire childhood, I lived on Garrison Street. The house is still there, same house, never been knocked down. And 101 Garrison.
Wow. Honestly, quite fascinating. But at what point did you kind of click to you that you were renting instead of owning? Because most 14-year-olds here, they're thinking about video games.
So, yeah, true. I never liked video games. I played it sometimes, but it was not something I was intrigued by. It was just a numbers game, right? So at the end of the day, my parents struggling financially, and I'm doing 1 + 1 = 2. And if that's the case, then why are we not buying, right? If you can buy the house and the mortgage is going to be $1,200, and we can rent out the house and you live for free, it's a no-brainer, right? Maybe you could work a little bit less because my parents worked around the clock. Really didn't attend any of my sports activities. And I was kind of raising myself a little bit because my parents were working so much. But I think that's why I am the way I am today and why I'm built the way I am. So, yeah.
Well, when you offered your parents the ability, that kind of idea, what was the response you got?
It's like any time I ever had any other ideas. Rejection, deflection, typical, no, we can't do that. And just people that don't think outside the box, and it's the way they're built. I didn't have a bad childhood. I just had a childhood that they weren't heavily involved in because of work, but they just didn't have that mindset, right? It was not thinking outside the box. And for some reason, I always found a way to think outside the box.
I would say so, for sure.
Yeah.
And do you have any brothers and sisters?
No, just myself.
Okay, so when you lived in Garrison, I'm guessing it was a 2-bedroom apartment, or?
Yeah, it was. We were on the 3rd floor, actually. It was like an attic apartment, and 2-bedroom, kitchen, living room, bathroom.
Super tight, probably.
Tight. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And when you ended up buying the house, what was the kind of shift in your family dynamic?
Not much, honestly. It was more just space and having American dream of owning your home, right? Which is the thing that everyone lives for, or tries to accomplish coming to this country as an immigrant, right? So that was major shift. Other than that, it was business as usual. It's just that now they owned a house and they had a little bit more freedom where they didn't have to worry about paying for the rent, because the rent was being paid for through the other tenants and the mortgage was being paid. So
yeah. So wait, you had them a 3-family or 2-family?
I got them a 2+1/2.
It was like a 2 and a bonus.
And the bonus was not legit, but it was also collecting income, right?
So you can't. And for them, they were like, "This is the best thing ever."
Correct.
I mean, wow, your parents really they nailed it on the first one, huh?
Yeah, they did. I guess maybe that's why I didn't have any more. But.
They said, yeah, this one we got right now, yeah, he's good. He's good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really okay. And now, growing up in the city, I love to see this because I don't know if you noticed, I have a 1-year-old. Right, my wife and I, we have a Maverick. He's our 1-year-old son. He's a joy, and I love Newark, and I always want to stay in Newark. It's my passion. I moved a lot. By the time I was 10 years old, I moved like 13 times, by the time I was 13, I moved 10 times, one or the other.
Yeah.
And for me, the Ironbound was the only real constant in my life because my church was in Ironbound. So although we moved all around here, we ended up always coming 3 days a week to my church with the CCP on McWhorter Street. My wife and I now live right across the street from our church. It's very convenient. And somehow I'm still late, actually, funny enough, to search. I can't make it up. How do you feel like living in the city, concrete jungle, shaped you rather than if you were living in the Portuguese dream? Majority of the Portuguese dream I meet here, they move out to Warren, right? They love Warren. They live there. They're nice little greenery. How do you think it shaped you differently?
100%. So I also have a kid.
Okay. Cool.
He's 11. His name's Cristiano.
Ooh.
And great soccer player, great kid. I think I nailed it too. I don't have any other kids. He's a just amazing kid.
Wow.
Personality wise, drive wise. Obviously he gets that from me, right?
Of course.
Because he sees me interact, and it's one of the things that I'm most fearful of, which thankfully will not happen because the way I've shaped my kid and the way I've teached them to be who he is, I could technically walk away from his life and he would be okay. Because he has that personality already of who I am and what I'm going to do. Yes, sometimes he has fears. Sometimes he has doubts. We all do it, regardless of what age you are. But besides that, he's confident. He's a leader. He's got an amazing heart, right? So I tell people all the time, I've done my job with him. Besides him meeting some, I can curse on here or no?
Yeah, please.
Some shit teenager friends who kind of
destroy him
a little bit.
Yeah.
Besides that, there is way he's not staying on course, right?
Wow.
So I've done an incredible job. It's the one thing I'm most proud of. Forget all the real estate, all of my accomplishments. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
My success with my son is the one thing I'm most proud of. And why I brought that up is my biggest fear is him becoming some spoiled brat, right? Who thinks he's entitled. But thankfully, like I said, he's not going to be that person because of the way I've raised him. But I do have my fears about the bubble that we live in. So I do live in Livingston. He does go to a private school, which is something I never thought I would spend the type of money that I spend on the school for my kid to go to a private school, right? But he's in a bubble and he doesn't know how to hustle. He doesn't know how to maneuver. He doesn't know how to be in a room with a drug dealer and be in a room with a billionaire, right? You could put me in a setting with either or, I'm going to be okay. I've been in those settings before. So it's my only fear where he's not tough enough. But thankfully, I'm in his life and I'm there to toughen him up. And I do that regularly. And he understands it's out of love. And but yeah, it's something that absolutely made me, you know?
Yeah. I think people drastically underestimate just how much your environment growing up shapes them. And your point, like you grew up in Ironbound, and we're not talking about Ironbound today, right? A lot of developments, et cetera.
Yeah.
You grew up in Ironbound 30 years ago, right? You see what I'm saying? It looked probably a little bit more dangerous, I would imagine, when you grew up now.
100%.
You see, let's be honest.
There's a projects down the street, the Hawkins Street projects, and there's this guy, I remember his name till today, Feli.
Feli.
That was his name. Tough kid. He
sounds like a tough guy.
Always tried to beat me up. He got me a few times. And you just figured out how to deal with it, right? In the summer, you're playing football in the middle of the street, and these kids roll by, and you just got to deal with it, right? So it teaches you lessons, and it teaches you how to, maneuver through life. But yeah, absolutely. Being in, like you said, the concrete jungle teaches you a lot of things. Yeah, it allows you to be able to be in a lot of different settings and to manage through it, where most people cannot do that. And common sense, as you think it's common sense, it's not so common.
No, it's not so common.
And
not so common.
It's scary how many people don't have common sense. And that's why they get, property stolen. That's why they get, conned, because they just don't have
the wherewithal.
Simple common sense.
Yeah.
And you learn that in the streets. You have to, because it's either learn it or there's going to be repercussions if you don't learn it. So, yeah.
In reference to your son, Cristiano, so we had I think one of the best guests we had was Gabe Lopez.
Yeah.
From JNL, right? From 55 Union, right? And he shares about, it's kind of interesting because Don Pepe, I really look forward to getting to know more of your story. Don Pepe, his father, kind of reminds me of you a little bit, like the stories he would share. Intuitive, tough, grew up, hustle, build, didn't really have things handed to them, with like way ahead of the curve when it comes to their age, right? Like you were 13, 14, kind of, hey, let's buy a house. The youngest realtor mankind has ever seen, right? I don't know if you earned the commission. I hope you did. What Don Pepe did to Gabe was very interesting. And because I shared with you, I'm worried about my kid. And he said there's two things here. First, to Gabe's point, Gabe said that his father made him work at a restaurant. He had to. And that Gabe said, no. I'm like, oh, well, it's kind of like nepotism. Of course, if your son works for you, you're going to like hold him down, right? You're going to give him the best tables, whatever. He was like taken back that I said that. He's like, oh no. If you were related to my father, it was infinitely worse for you. My dad was so nice to the other employees. He was so tough on me.
Because he expects more from you. It's a given, right? You expect more from your kids, and you expect them to do better and put them in a tough situation because they should be able to handle it.
And I asked Gabe, I said, Gabe, what are you going to do with your kid? How do you, he goes, I did not have what my father had. He says, I have a chip on my shoulder. I'm very fortunate. Yeah. He's very honest about that. And then he said this, he said, my kid, I'm throwing my kid in the restaurant. And we even talked about like, not my dad's restaurant, though, like another restaurant, so he won't get any nepotism. I said, oh, a different restaurant? He said, no. I'm going to my dad's restaurant because my dad is not going to be easy on my grandkid.
Right.
On my son. My dad's going to say, hey, we got to go. And he said that. I was like, wow, so interesting. And then the second thing I'll share on a much smaller scale, I share this with my wife. My in-laws, I don't know if you have a will. Do you have a will? I got to make a will.
I do, yeah.
You have a will? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that when you have a kid, you realize you got to make a will. So I realized, okay, I got to get a will. I told my wife, who are we going to leave our son with? And she's like, oh, we should leave him with our parents, or her parents. And I said, my wife is so calm. She grew up in a very stable family, very, very healthy, very whole, very stable. Super devout Christians. Boom. I grew up in a very beautiful family, but we were like Wild West, like kill or be killed, lions. Everyone in my family. Now, one person in my family is weak. Everyone is in like deeply survivors. No one person in my family is soft. There's no one. So I'm thinking, if I give my son to these in-laws, these people, my son's gonna grow up soft.
Yeah.
And only soft. They don't know how to, like, they're not gonna be able to manage money, and they're gonna ruin my assets. So I'm thinking like, like this. And then my wife said this though. She hit me. She said, "What you're tough. Your whole family's tough. You guys are, because you guys had to survive in poverty. You guys came over. There's a lot of dysfunction, a lot of trauma, all that stuff." Because do you want our son to be that tough? Right. If it causes him to go through that things? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, okay, you're telling me you want your son to not know where the food's going to come for 2 days on end. You really want that?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I don't want that. He goes, okay, then let's be real. Maybe there's another way to teach him toughness than poverty.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh. And she said to me, like, it sounds simple to, right? Probably you've gone through this 11 years. As a new father, I'm like, how do you do it? And then I got this book called The Intentional Father. And I've been reading through the book, and it talks about like you're saying, giving your son, like really being involved in your son's life, and training them, teaching them, bringing them with you to your work, showing them, hey, you see dad's moving. Dad's not chilling. Dad's going. Dad's hustling. And then the book says too, though, putting your son in tough environments. So like maybe your son in Livingston Private School, it would be like sending him to like a 2-week, like, I don't know, I'm just making something up. In the book, it says like send him to a
YMCA camp somewhere
in the mountains.
Right.
And he has to hike 70 miles like they do at St. Benedict's, right? The kids have to hike like 40 miles there.
I went there. So
you went to St. Benedict's?
I went through it, the trail and all that stuff.
You went to St. Benedict's?
Yeah. Yeah, I was a captain. I was a team leader for the trail. So,
wow.
Yeah, one of the kids almost committed suicide. I had to talk him off the ledge. Yeah, it was
on the trail.
Yeah, because people it's not easy, man. This shit is legit. Like, people are like not used to what you have to go through, and you have to be a team, and you have to be a unit.
Wow.
And people break down, and the kid literally almost, Not sure if it was legit or if it was just a cry for help, but it happened, right? So
Whoa, how old were you?
13 years old,
You're
freshman
helping-
year.
You're buying houses and
14
saving
year, 14
lives.
Yeah. When you put it that way, it sounds amazing, but no, man. Listen, you do it in the moment because it's happening, right?
Yeah.
But I was going to school and I was seeing these soccer players. I played soccer, and I was not the best player at all. But I'm looking at these players that are better than me, and maybe I could have kept up with it and had a better chance. My son has a much better shot than me. He's just on a whole different level. But they're going and playing on MLS and making $30,000-$40,000 back then, and I'm like,
Wow.
there's no way that's enough for me, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that.
No.
I worked at nightclubs as a kid from like 14 to 15.
Brother, you were the most mature adult
Yeah.
14-year-old. And we could just spend the whole podcast between the ages of 13 to 15. What?
It's interesting, and then that's why.
What kind of nightclub? Like a go-go club?
No, like Hunka Bunka, Abyss, Chrome, Deco, and I was doing working these tea nights where I was getting people to go and say the name of my guest list. So I came up with a guest list. It was fantasy guest list.
Wow.
And for everyone that went, I got like $10. So sometimes I was having 300-400 people going on my guest list. I was going home with $3-4 grand, to the point where my parents thought I was dealing drugs, and they hired a guy to follow me one night to make sure of where I was going. Because I told them I was working at a nightclub and my friends would drive me there. And for a good 5-6 years, I used to get speeches. I also was in soccer and an altar boy and in a youth group at St. Casimir's Church on Adams Street, right in front of the park. And the guy's name was Father Pete. And Father Pete was a priest, and he was a priest, soccer coach.
Wow.
Guy did everything. And I get speeches all the time where he's like, when are you going to stop this club shit? When are you going to stop, do you understand what happens in these clubs? Do you understand what these little girls are doing? And he'd like ride me, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what I was doing. He was doing his job, right?
Yeah.
He was trying to make sure he steered me in the right way. Till today, I still talk to him like once every couple of weeks. And huge mentor in my life.
Oh, wow.
But this is what I did for, many years. And by the time I was like 18, I had almost, close to 150, 200 grand saved up.
Because you were promoting these clubs.
Yeah.
You were so different than 99.99999% of children.
Yeah.
Kind of actually makes sense. You seem young. It kind of actually makes sense now because you have you've been able to accomplish more in such a short period of time. But actually, it's almost like you started, out of the womb. That's what it feels like. You were like 25 at 13.
That's been the story my whole life. Like,
Really?
I feel like you're like an old man. Like, even when I was in my 20s, it was just like, my mentality. Like, not that I'd stay home and I wouldn't go out. I would just, the way I acted, the way I handled situations, the way I addressed deals, it was like I was an older 40, 50-year-old guy in a 25-year-old body, right?
Because you were.
Yeah, and because I had to, right? So at the end of the day, and I'm finally coming into where I can enjoy life, because for 20 plus years, my life was just grind and work. And even when I didn't have to do it as much, because you're built on doing something a certain way for so long, it's like the Titanic, right? It's going.
Wow.
You can't just stop it. You can't just slow it down. There's just too much momentum.
Yeah.
And your body and your personality, it's used to being like on defense mode and attack mode all the time. And that's who you become. So I'm at that point in my life where I'm trying to scale that down and like just be able to come off of that high.
Yeah.
Because it's been a long run of just being an adult. For way too long.
Yeah. It's almost like you gotta be like a cowboy for a little while.
Yeah.
Enjoy, go, one thing I've been doing lately, it's very strange because I'm 29, right? Different phase of life, 1-year-old, not 11-year-old. And I have right now I have 20 units, right? So I'm very grateful, amazing. I never thought I would have 1 unit. My wife asked me this question. She said, do you even want, from a book called Present Over Perfect, just do you even want the life that you're building? I'm like, of course, I wanted success. I want this. She goes, well, do you even want the life that you're building? And I got hit. I was like,
your wife asks some deep questions.
my wife is deep, man. My wife's deep out of
Some
nowhere.
deep questions.
My wife's deep out of nowhere.
Because most people go their whole life and they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. Right. For me, at a point, I was doing. I'm like, why am I doing as much as I'm doing? There's a reason for it now, and I understand it. But you have to ask that question, because if you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, then what's the purpose, right? So it's a deep question.
I fully agree. Can I ask, what was your answer?
For me, it's leaving the legacy behind, right? For a while, it was just doing to do, because it was all I knew how to do, how to do, right? Because the pattern, always doing. But the reason why I do as much as I do, because I want to leave a legacy behind, that this one guy was able to have the initiative to change a neighborhood. So where I'm developing, there's, 8 properties I've done in the past 6 years, several hundreds, close to 1,000 units of apartments.
I want to be clear. This is not like, hey, I flipped a house, right?
No.
Like, my Instagram videos are really nice of me and my like 2-family with the bonus Airbnb.
Yeah.
This is not 2-family with the bonus Airbnb. This is like several hundred units, buildings, serious projects.
All in one area too, right? Like blocks away. Like I have one here, one here, one here, one here.
Yeah, I got to ask you, how did you get them so close, these projects?
So purposely, intentionally.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So not having money and seeing the vision of, I need to scale this and do it quickly. How do I do that? Couldn't buy in the Ironbound, didn't have the money to do that. So I found the area that was not happening yet and figured out that, certain things were in place, certain things were where they needed to be. NJIT was here, 280 was here, et cetera. And I just started buying all the land that I could and started doing deals in that area. Strategically also because of the logistics. I don't have to go to Bayonne, then Hackensack, then Hoboken, then Asbury Park. So speed, right, also helped a lot with doing so much so quickly. To the point where, like you said before, you have your 20 units and you never thought you would have one. I now am capable of saying I'm about to starting a project 400 units. I never would have thought. My goal originally was to have a couple 100,000 saved up, and that was my dream right, as a kid. But never would I have thought that here at in my 30s I'm building 400 units. Like crazy, right? Just if you asked me that question, I would have been like, "There's no way," right? And the age of 18 years old or 21, right? But the answer to your question is leaving a legacy. So you go up the bridge, Frankie Rogers Boulevard, where the Red Bull Stadium is, and you have the Cobalt Lofts, which is owned by Advanced Realty, and you have Irby, and you have 35 other buildings. Yeah. They're all different developers. They're all...
That is true.
Right? And here, my goal is to be the one guy, because 99% of the stuff that's new in that area was built by me and gonna be built by me, that changed the entire area, which to me is the legacy that I want to leave behind. So that's my passion. That's my drive. That's my why. It's not the money. It's not an extra $100,000, an extra $1 million. It's not the money. It's now, how do I take it to the next level? Because to make a quick $1 million, I could go do that in Asbury. I could go do that in Belleville. I could do it anywhere, right? Yeah. And a lot of people have asked me, like, why do you deal with what you deal? Why don't you just go do stuff in other areas? And it's a good question. Yeah. But my mission and my passion is in one place. Yeah. And it takes a while for people to understand that. But it makes sense. And it's going to get to where it needs to get to, because at this point I have the land already. I own it. It's not like I want to build 4,000 units. I'm in the process of doing it as we speak. Yeah. So
okay, so when's the last time you bought a piece of land? Have you I guess maybe this is,
like 2-3 months ago.
Oh, so you're still buying the land still?
Every single day.
Oh, so, okay. I thought you paused on building and you're developing. So you're still buying and you're building.
Correct. So I have what I've bought in over the years. And like the one I just bought was 20,000 square feet. We're doing a 100-unit building on it. It's going for
20,000 square feet?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And bought a property for under $1 million, which is cheap, given that, per door, it's $45,000 a door. So building approved is worth 4.5. I bought it for under $1 million. Not a bad deal, right? So still buying, right? Especially if it's in that area. If it's coming, you have to fight me for it, because I consider that an area that I'm trying to develop. So missing on those opportunities is not something I take lightly.
Now, let me ask you a question. Let's say there was a building or land. Well, would you go over the land over the existing building? Like if there's small residential property or like a multifamily property? 8 units, 12 units, 10 units, 8 units.
Doesn't make a difference. It comes down to the purchase price, right? So whether it's land or a building, you just got to calculate what the value is for the deal.
Would you say you're picky though on your prices now that you're building and your money? You got to be, like you were saying, right? Like if we're slow, we can just build the 30 units, right? But my money right now, I'm coming to a realization where I'm like, okay, I got to really utilize private money. There's no other way, right? Just at a certain point, my money it's not limitless. So own money, I'm saying.
That's where I'm at now, right? So in the past, it has been my own money. I've done it just self-funded, no partners, no private equity, no raising capital from friends and family. So on my own. Now going into building 3,000-4,000 units, I'm starting to have those meetings. I'm meeting with Goldman Sachs. I'm meeting with, private equity companies, family offices, and people who know me. I'm in this group called YPO, which is a huge part of my life at this point. I joined a couple of years ago.
What does it stand for?
Young Professional Organization.
Nice.
So you got to be CEO of a company. You have to have X amount of employees and have a net worth of X, right? And a lot of these people are people that are third, fourth generation billion-dollar companies. Where I don't have that knowledge. So these guys are actually helping me at times, guide me and maneuvering me through the right things to do as I'm growing to a scale that they're at already, right? So that's been cool. Huge. Yeah. Very influential and very helpful. And I'm grateful for everyone who's helped me thus far in that group. But I can't talk to my friends about that. And I have few because I work as much and I'm very selective on who I'm friends with. And I can't talk to my family about it because, as we've talked about earlier, no clue on how to even buy a house to ask them about a $5 million problem or whatever the case may be. That's not going to happen. So this group actually allows me to have, someone as a soundboard to just bounce ideas off of.
It's just like, it's so relative, right? Like to me, I'm like, man, am I going to be able to build 1,000 units when I'm 30, in my late 30s? Maybe, hopefully.
It's doable. Yeah.
It's doable. Oh, it's definitely doable.
Definitely doable.
Definitely doable, for sure. But in my mind, this is how I go through. It's like, I still feel, maybe you don't feel this way. I'm going to put words in your mouth. But oftentimes, like the progress that we're on, when you didn't grow up around wealth, or you didn't grow up around real estate, it can be actually very lonely in a way, like very misunderstood. I'll give you an example. I was talking to my mom about a problem before, just catching up with her. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what's happening, blah, blah. My mom was trying to give me insight. And my mom, I love my mother with all my heart. And she's giving me insight in real estate world and like problems. I'm listening to her. I'm like, this woman has really no idea what she's talking about. She's very well-intentioned. She loves me with all her soul, but she generally just doesn't know what she's talking about. It's like very, very well-intentioned. Boom. And then I think about my friends. My friends right now, my average friend probably makes 90 grand, 100 grand, 80 grand,
Typical
120.
salary, right.
Good salary, but realistically, they're not like, they're not understanding, okay, hey, I had to buy that property and now my bank account went from like 300
to zero.
To like, I have like 20 grand and my overhead is like 80 grand. So for the next 30 days, I got to figure out how to get, another 80 grand to cover my overhead and still have 20 grand. And they when they're worried about the car payment. So I'm not willing to just cut off that relationship because we're not similar growth obsession people. I have different purposes with that friend. Like I'm going to see a friend tomorrow. We're going to go just hang out by the beach. He's super chill, amazing guy, plays guitar, is not looking to take over the world, build properties. He's just looking to...
And that's okay, because that's him, right? That's him. I'm talking about friends that are toxic or have bad habits.
Oh, no, that I agree.
Or that, I agree. So that's what I'm talking about, those type of friends. There's certain friends that it doesn't matter what magnitude you're at, that you never cut ties. That's not what I was referring to. I was referring more to bad habits, toxic, people that don't have the same vision, draining, right?
Not negative trustworthy. Negative energy.
Negative energy is number one, right? Anyone that's going to drain energy... you always have those cancerous people in your life, and you need to avoid them at all costs, right? All costs. Because life is already difficult as it is. No need to make it more difficult. And I have enough stress in my life. Being a single father, running a business, doing everything that I do, then to add on top that when I go hang out with somebody, they're going to drain me with problems and stress. It's not worth it. The relationship's not healthy.
No. I've made a few changes in my life. I recommend you to too if you're going on the slow down route. I'm going slow down. I'm not even close to you, but I'm slowing down. Here's what I'm doing. And not still ambitious, but in terms of my daily cadence, I'm meditating. Practice meditation and breath work. Can't believe it. Second thing is I cut off social media. But here's what I did that was good. I cut off social media. It made a big difference in my life. I'm shocked. I was because I'm always on social. So I'm like, let me try it. So much more present. But when you're saying about negativity, one of the people who I pulled away from is a good friend of mine. Very, very, very ambitious man. But you were saying it's just too much. There's too much negative energy. I'm looking to focus on my thing. I'm not looking to get any stress that's unnecessary. I love you. I celebrate you, but you got to stay at a distance. Yeah. Because I'm on a mission. I don't have the bandwidth. I have a kid that deserves my full attention when I'm with them. I have a wife who I don't want to lose, right? And I'm working on that. So you don't have unlimited unlimited cards in your hand. You only got so many cards to play.
Well, I'm implementing some of that stuff in my life. So I did start meditation. I did start the process of getting at least 8 hours of sleep every night. I leave my phone downstairs. I shut it down at 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock, because there is only 24 hours in the day. So it's not that you don't have enough time. It's that you have too many commitments. So there's this guy who said that to me. I'm actually in one of his courses, Integrated Living. His name's Donato. and he has a place in Miami called the Miami Ice Club.
Oh, cool.
So if you've never tried Wim Hof breathing, put it on your list.
Okay.
It will change your life.
Someone just told me about this, actually.
Because I went to Costa Rica with my YPO group, and I had them all try it. And
Wow.
everything that we did in Costa Rica, that was the one thing that they had the most value of.
The Wim Hof breathing.
Wim Hof breathing. And I just sent 2 of my employees to Miami to do it. And the girls that went as like a reward for their hard work called me when they were done. They're like, oh my God, we feel amazing. We've never felt this way. All the energy in the world. It's almost like you're on drugs. But it's crazy.
Wim Hof breathing.
Wim Hof breathing.
Hey, I'm guessing it's an ice bath thing?
No, so that's the second part. That's if you want to do that. But the Wim Hof breathing is just a pattern of how you breathe. You start losing sensation in your fingers. You start losing sensation on your feet. You feel like you're leaving your body. It's crazy. It's like tripping, but there's no drugs, right? And
wow. Just off breath.
Just taking a certain amount of air into your body. Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah. So look into it. 'Cause it's deep on the whole process and why it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he owns this place where you do that, and then from there you go do an ice bath for 3 minutes. And he's doing this integrated living class that there's 5 of us involved in, and I'm on a 90-day sprint with him. And these are some of the things that we're talking about, how to slow down, right? Yeah. So it's exactly where I'm at.
Wow.
I wish I was at it maybe 5-10 years ago.
Oh, that's me.
But yeah, exactly. But everything happens for a reason.
Well,
so.
No, I agree with you 100% there. To that point, how do you go about, in being a busy developer, father, so many of these things, and just a regular person, son, friend.
Yeah.
How do you go about building those boundaries that real estate sometimes can just break in your personal life? You were saying 7:30, turning off your phone.
Yeah, but that's now, right? So for the past, I don't know how long, since my son was born, life has been difficult and challenging because of how much I have on my plate, right? Now he's older, he's on autopilot, right? School, practice, it's different. When he was younger, it was a lot harder. But even dating and doing those type of things, it was just non-existent. There's not enough time, right? It's trying to find a balance. It's just difficult because there's only so much time in the day, right? So I was just talking to someone this morning where dating women is tough because when you're working all morning, sometimes I'm up at 5:36 before my kid goes to school and getting ready and prepping for the day, and then picking them up from soccer at 7:30 and coming home and making dinner like last night. And then to go out with someone, you're drained, right? And then you can't give them the proper energy, or they want to see you more than you saying, hey, I can see you once a week. Well, that's not enough. Well, that's all I can afford to give you, right? So Donato said to me, he's like, dude, you're undateable. He goes, you're undateable. He goes, not because you're not a good-looking guy, not because you're not successful, not because you are not capable of getting a girl. It's because just your life. You need to slow down. If that's something that you want, which it is something that I want to have more kids. I want to have a family besides just my son. And he goes, you're not dateable. You're undateable. You need to change certain things in your life to be more dateable and to be someone who has time for that because you just don't have the span to do that. And he was spot on. And, so listen, we're all growing in different parts of our lives, right? I went through some pains for a long time because it was just work and my son. And now I'm finally at a place where I'm trying. I'm not there yet, but trying to find that balance.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah. So
I love that. I think that's the whole thing. It's not like my friend's not YPO. My friend's name is Bennett, and he tells me something all the time. He goes, it's not a problem to be solved, it's a tension to be managed. And that's how I feel like balance is, especially in meditation. One of the practices I've learned is the phrase, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Behavioral change is extremely difficult. And directly, you are a person who clearly, self-diagnose here, you are a true worker.
Yeah.
You work. You are a person who works. Your output is higher than vast majority of humans can fathom.
I tell people sometimes what I could do in a day is what someone could maybe do in a week or two. It's just, and it's crazy, but that's why I've been able to accomplish as much as I have.
Correct. And
to go back to your question, you were talking about just the output of what's happening and how do I manage and how do I deal with, everything going on. You lose a little piece of you because it's work. It's work. Wow. And you lose, a piece of you. And I've lost a piece of myself and I've felt that, right? So for everything you do, there's a price, right? And that's what it comes down to. So I was willing to pay the price. I was willing to sacrifice. Thankfully, it didn't kill me. Sometimes I thought that I was on the verge of like
a nervous breakdown gone wrong.
Or just, having some crazy thing happen to me.
Yeah.
And I was willing to sacrifice everything because and my health and my time and my happiness for the end goal, right? But I knew that someday I'd be where I am today in life. I mean, today means the past 3 or 6 months. The past 3 or 6 months, I've been focusing on getting back a piece of me, getting back my time, getting back, the things that I care about. But I intentionally did that. It's not something that was by accident. I'm not saying it was the best choice or the right choice, but it was not a horrible choice.
Wow.
And it got me to where I am today. And I have a freedom that, most people don't have. And tomorrow, the thing that's beautiful is you can take everything I have, put me anywhere in the world. I'll be fine. As long as I'm healthy and I can work and I can use my brain.
Yeah. I tell my team with sales, I'm like, once you learn the skill of sales, I'm a salesperson before I'm a real estate person.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We're number one in Newark. We sold, last year sold 89 houses in Newark or 90 houses in Newark, right? We love helping people sell and buy. I probably could have made more money if I went like the wholesale route or something like that. But honestly, I love my business. I love what I do. And frankly, I love helping putting people on and something I can like go to bed every night, feel good about. Where sometimes on the wholesale or like that route, it's like, it can get dirty, right? It can be tough. Like, what's the right thing to do? Whereas my thing, I feel like I usually do the right thing. Like, honestly, maybe I don't make the most money per sale, but I feel like I do good by people. People hopefully feel like I did good by them. And I go to bed happy. And that's it. With that said, I tell my agents, I'm like, maybe one day realtors don't exist anymore. Maybe one day the world no longer needs realtors. Everything's on Amazon. Still, though, it's not about just real estate, guys. You guys have a skill set. And along the way, by putting in the work, you're forming your character. Because that's actually like the ultimate reward I see. Like, this is from a guy, Alex Hormozy, right? Very famous on Instagram right now. And he says this, he goes, we don't do the work for the outcome. We do the work because we ourselves, our transformation is the desired outcome. So every time I do work, like for example, this podcast's not good. I'm just going to call you up and say, hey, Pedro, I know you're really busy. We had another podcast. And although it's like, bro, we already did one. It's like, well, who cares? Because we're doing the work. I'm learning how to ask questions. I'm learning about you. You're communicating. And you, like, I think it's just better to do things correctly. Like, for example, how many shortcuts could you have taken at Envy by Gomes? 1,000. But you walk in and honestly, great building. Like serious vibe, young adult, you're single, you got to be in that building. Young professional, it's very, very nice. I'm not gonna lie, it's a very nice building. But the point I'm saying is that like the shortcuts, like these things don't really help you, but developing the skill set or your set, like the mindset and the skills will ultimately carry with you, even if I dropped you in freaking Qatar. Let me ask you this. You have a good reputation, honestly. I don't know if you know this, but you do have a good reputation.
I've been hearing that more and more lately.
How do you, how'd you build it? Like, how does like, do you think you would have, like, how does that work?
Organic, no effort. There's no social media. There's no marketing.
Because in real estate, people speak very badly about people. That's one of the things. And you're public with it, right?
Yeah.
You didn't do Envy. You did Envy by Gomes, right? You put your tagline on it. So you say, hey, this, you stood behind it. You said, oh, this is me. So people have complaints, right? And people have their thing. But with you, overall, you have a very good reputation. I haven't really heard anything negative.
Just doing the right thing, putting my head down. Like I said, no marketing, no branding, no website. We built our website like a year ago.
Stop.
Nothing.
That's not true.
True. Envy by Gomes were built when the buildings were done. Those were the first two buildings with the by Gomes tag to it. Everything else going forward will have that. But yeah, just literally putting my head down, not looking up, and just pounding and going and doing. That's it. And your work speaks for itself. And that's what's happened. It's just people now see that this kid, which was what I was back when I was like 24, 25, and I go to City Hall and I try to get something done and I get kicked out and people are like, because no one's really there to help you, right?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. But now it's a different story. But when you first go into City Hall,
that's true.
It's difficult to navigate, right? So that 24-year-old kid now is the serious real deal. Back then it was just some
Who's
kid.
this guy?
Yeah, so it was this guy coming in.
How many years do you think it took for you to see that?
10.
I've been
10 to 15 is when it really happens.
That you feel like, okay, you're a stat, because that's a decade, right?
Yeah.
You're not going anywhere. You've been somewhere for 10 years. You're not moving around.
10 to 15 years is what it takes.
Wow.
And it's crazy because it's just a snowball effect, right? It's a compounding interest, right? $2, tomorrow's $4 is $8. And if you keep doing that very quickly, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Right.
So same thing with this. It's like, Start with a 13 unit building, and 13 was 20, 20 was 40, 40 was 80, then it was 100, then it's 200, then it's 400, and now next one that we're working on is going to be 700. So it just starts to really snowball.
700 units.
Yeah.
Where's that located?
Can't really discuss it yet.
But Newark?
It's in Newark, yeah. I like to see Newark succeed.
Yeah.
So every crane I see, it's not like, oh, I'm going to have tough renting my building. I'm not worried about that because my quality of my buildings may not be the best, but it's up there high enough where the competition is not going to be able to touch it. So seeing that makes me happy because I'm a guy that bets in Newark, right?
Wow.
And wants people to succeed in Newark. I could care less if I saw 10 more cranes. That's good for everyone in Newark.
Yeah.
It's a win-win, right?
I agree.
So
I totally agree. There was a realtor who once called me and said, this is just crazy, but like the realtor called me and said, hey, listen, I saw that you were number one in Newark. This happened 3 years ago. And the guy goes, or 2 years ago, we were selling like 40 houses a year in Newark at that time, right? And the guy called me and says, hey, just let you know, next year I'm going to beat you. I'm going to be number one. And the guy said it like with it was such a kind of like, who?
Did he?
He did not do it, no.
Okay.
Like we've been number one for 4 years.
You should call him up.
No.
Hey, by the way, do you want to come work for me? Because I remember the statement you made. I would like to refresh your memory that did not happen. And we're hiring agents. See, I'm the type of guy that would say something like that. I would never do something like that. Yeah. But I think it. You know?
I think okay. So I'm the same way. I would never do that because I'm like all I want is peace. But I do think I'm like this guy, and then I see him like But the thing I told him this. I said I won't say his name, but I was like, brother, you know what? I hope you are. Mm-hmm. I wish him well. He's like, what do you mean? No, I'm telling him number one. I'm like, be number one. It's so good. Whether you're number one today, maybe you're probably not going to be number one in 5 years. And even if you are number one in 20 years, you're going to die and then you're going to be forgotten. Like, who cares about this number one crap? You're doing well. I'm very happy for you. That means Newark got a better classification of realtor. Yeah. Realtors already don't have the best rep, right? So if you can just increase your quality of service, that's why we're number one in Newark. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. We're not number one in Newark just because we work hard, because we're direct to sellers, because we have a reputation. That's not just why. The very honest truth is there really was not a crazy level of competition. Yeah. There's really not. Like your building, Henry by Gomes, very, very, very cool building. That's one I toured. That's the only one. And I haven't toured the other one. But that's one tour, so that's when I...
But you've been to Canelo before.
I've been Canelo, yeah. Very cool, too. And great vibes. And I'll tell you, I looked at the gym right next to Canelo, and I even think how you did the layout cool. Because I'm getting my cup of coffee. I'm like, dude, I can see myself living here. This is a sick gym. Yeah. So I think that was pretty cool how you have the glass. Because it kind of gives the person the coffee
visual
shop...
of like what's on the other side.
Yes. Right? I thought that was a good thing. I don't know if... You probably did it on purpose, I'm guessing. Yeah. But my point is, on Everybody Gomes, you just raised above the bar of like, I'm going to provide something that, frankly, Newark deserves... but it's not being met. Same thing I did in real estate. I said, okay, this is not rocket science. Do good business by people. Yeah. Don't screw people over. Do it long enough. That's it.
Yeah, I'll tell you that the building Arbol, right when you come off at 280,
beautiful.
Big green sign that says Arbol.
Beautiful.
Probably spent an extra $1 million on that building I should have. My siding guy, Victor, goes,
wow,
dude, why are you doing this? Why are you spending this money? And I said, Victor, because it's not just this building. It's the 4,000 other units I'm going to build. And that's a gateway leaving Newark. Everyone that comes into Newark, I'll be at Ruth Chris Steakhouse at the Shore Hills Mall, and I'd run into people and like, oh, have you seen that building, Arbol? And they're talking about it, right? So my goal was to set a precedent in the city of Newark so that people understand that, one, I am here, and two, Newark can receive this type of quality of work. Yeah. And there is no other building that I know of that has amenities like that. Maybe there's one or two that may just have opened up. But
I would say Irby and Harrison.
That's it.
Irby,
but in Newark.
Newark, Irby and
Even
Harrison.
the one in Newark, it's not.
No.
The one in Harrison,
I agree.
All day.
The one in Harrison is unbelievable, but I do agree with you. What they did in Newark, they gave kind of like the B version.
Correct.
And they're apparently allegedly doing well on their lease out too. I'm not sure what the real numbers are.
They have a good brand. They have a good name. Listen, at the end of the day, they do a good job, right? So you have to compliment the people that do.
But your amount of amenities, I do agree. Because what you did more than many. I think you're right. You had said a great word.
There's a vibe. There's a culture. Vibe. You walk in, there's music. The music carries you through the whole building. The music takes you up the elevator. The artwork that we have, I hand selected every piece in that building. All that stuff talks to a certain type of clientele.
You really hand selected it? Stop.
The guys in Pompano Beach in Florida, friend owns a warehouse with 75,000. I went down there myself, hand selected this stuff. Shipped it up here, spent $20,000+ on all the artwork for that, the restaurant, and a bunch of other things, and hand selected every piece myself.
I'm stunned.
I'm hands on, man. Like I tell, and it's the other thing, we do the development. Yeah. We do the leasing. We do the management. We have staff that works in the building that does the cleaning. We do everything in house from start to finish. So now we're starting to do lease ups for other clients. We're starting to manage
Really?
other clients' properties. We're starting to do construction for other people because the brand and the name is there and people know that
They trust it.
They trust it. Like they'll write a check for $100,000, $200,000 and not even ask me for a contract because they know that I'd rather lose money than
lose your word.
Lose my word. Because then automatically a guy like you who I've never met doesn't say that, hey, haven't heard anything but good news. Because normally developers, it's bad, negative.
Yes.
You know, don't get me wrong. There's some people that will say stuff like a tenant will move out and like, oh, I didn't get my security deposit. You know why you didn't get it?
Yeah.
Because you left the apartment looking like shit. Like, that's why you didn't get it. Besides that, there's not negative reviews about anything because we do a good job. We pay people. We don't wait for banks to give us draws. I just write the check, right? And there's value to that. So when you need that person to come work for you or a job in Jersey City, who do you think the developer is going to go work for? The guy that has to wait 30, 60, 90 days, sometimes 100 days to get paid?
No.
Or the guy that pays you a check within a week?
I'm blown away. Pedro, personal, because I honestly, I feel like this, usually I like the podcast for others. I think this one's for me. But, okay, outside of real estate, hobbies, do you have any?
So just started picking up a few hobbies because all I did was work. So I started tennis and salsa dancing. Yeah. So
salsa dancing, you're gonna find a wife real quick out here.
So
you're gonna
that's
a little bachata, perhaps.
Yeah,
okay.
Bachata, you know. So I started doing that, and that was part of my 90-day sprint. It was like one of the things was no social media, a couple other things, pick up some hobbies, and just implementing these things. Because once you get momentum and you start doing them, it's like going to the gym. The first week sucks. Once you're going 30 days strong, you wake up in the morning and your body wants to go to the gym, right? So
Atomic
creating
habits.
those patterns. Yes. Right. So, and then my ultimate goal is, and I've been saying this for at least 5 years, and I started once and I stopped, is to get my pilot's license. I like anything that goes
very
fast.
Cool.
Boats, cars, planes.
Motorcycle or not for you?
I'm too crazy that I would kill myself.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I have purposely, you know when you know?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That not a good decision.
Pedro, I am very grateful for your time. Thank you so much for opening up about your life. Ladies, if you want to salsa dance with Pedro, you can find him at. Just kidding.
Thank you. Appreciate the plug.
I'm the wingman.
Yeah.
No, but guys, check out his building. He's only like a few apartments left. Take care, guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.